Hey guys, what's up? Zishan here, and this is the Cubot S550. Very sorry for the extremely late review, but anyway, this is a 5-inch phone with some pretty stunning looks and a really big fingerprint sensor. We get some pretty balanced specs here: MTK Quad Core 3000 mAh battery and 2 gigs of RAM for about 130 bucks. What Cubot has to offer though is their finish and attention to detail, which some of the manufacturers definitely lack. So let's see if Cubot has created a really tight and finished package here. I love how this phone looks. It's sleek, futuristic, and looks very, very good. But only when there are no fingerprints. And let me tell you, you can see fingerprints really easily on this phone. And getting rid of the fingerprints is super hard because once you get rid of them, they come right back. But again, when there's no fingerprints, it looks amazing. It's relatively compact for a 5.5-inch phone, actually a little smaller than the LG G4 I believe, but it does feel a tiny bit heavy, but not enough to notice. Still though, it's almost small enough for me to use and I have pretty small hands. There are some healthy bezels around the screen, but they look smaller because it is 2.5D glass. Surprisingly though, the top and bottom bezels are pretty small. The metal bezel around the phone makes the phone look great and adds some much needed structure to this all glass phone. You have the buttons on the left and the SIM and the SD card slot on the right. Going back to the back of the Cubot, and again it looks amazing, but you can see fingerprints super easily. Nothing sticks out from the back, usually the camera, but this time there's nothing, everything's flush, and the fingerprint sensor, which is pretty big, is recessed in the middle. I usually don't mind a few certifications on the back, but there are a ton of them printed on the bottom, and they do look a little ugly. Overall though, build quality is great, and it feels and looks great. However though, fingerprints can be seen really easily and can make your phone look pretty ugly sometimes. It's also relatively fragile compared to metal phones. So we have a 720p resolution on a 5.5-inch panel, so I'm pretty impressed with how colorful the display is. I was expecting a good quality display, but the colors here are super contrasty and look good, and it doesn't even have mirror vision installed. The display can crank up to 450 nits of brightness, which is usually bright enough for using in sunlight, but the glass here is OGS, or one glass solution, which means there's very little reflection and makes it even more usable in sunlight. The touch sensitivity is super sensitive as well and is really responsive. I believe it's Gorilla Glass 3, but the glass itself is pretty tough as well. I'm super happy with the display. While the specs themselves aren't that great, like the resolution and max brightness, it's actually a really great display. There's one speaker on the back of the device, and it's moderately loud. Quality is average as well. There's not much bass, but speech in general, like podcasts, are fine. You can enhance the volume with the speaker at the expense of quality though. Have a listen for yourself. So we have a 3000 mAh battery powering a 5.5-inch 720p display. But Cubot in general has had some pretty good software and hardware optimization, so I'm expecting a little bit higher than average results. So let's see what we get. I did 2 tests. First, I reloaded a web page every 10 seconds and the phone died in 8 hours and 13 minutes. And then I looped a video until it died and it lasted for 9 hours and 2 minutes. Those are pretty good battery results considering the battery is only 3000 mAh. So here's a more real-life battery test. I usually unplug at 6 a.m. I listen to podcasts for about 2 hours. I read news and Reddit for about an hour or so, and I play some games, and I had about 25% left at 10 p.m. Light users won't have a problem at all. Medium users also no problem at all. Heavy users though, I believe you guys can probably make it to bed at the end of the day, but it might die maybe like 20 minutes or half an hour before you go to bed. So we have Android 5.1 installed here, and it's pretty great. We have completely stock Android, and Cubot has done a ton to optimize it and make sure it feels snappy. It's really, really good. I'm super impressed with the general speed and fluidity of the Cubot ROM. So let's talk about the fingerprint sensor. Cubot spent quite a bit of time and money talking about their new and improved fingerprint sensor. So I tested it, and yes, it's fast, but it's still not as fast as the current king of fingerprint sensors, the Nexus 6P and the Galaxy Note 5. Accuracy is surprisingly usable. I was expecting super inaccurate results, but I would say it recognizes me about 9 out of 10 times, and it's accurate and fast enough for me to use on a regular basis. The only annoying thing about having the sensor on the back is trying to unlock it while it's on a table, so you have to pick it up. That's just me being lazy though. You don't get any pre-installed apps that cannot be removed, but I think the only one was Clean Master. You also get smart gestures to turn the phone on while it is off. We have an MTK6735 processor, which admittedly is now a little bit underpowered, but it still runs the phone pretty well because of the lower 720p resolution. I could play some pretty intense games on it without lag at all, like Nova, and less intense games like Clash Royale because of the 720p resolution. I ran Antutu as well and got a score of about 31,000. Make sure this phone works where you are, as I didn't pay attention to the network bands on this phone when I got it, and it turns out it only supports 2G and LTE where I live, which is my mistake. But speeds on 4G are pretty decent, so check it out. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi also both work well. GPS quality is quite decent. Like usually this MTK chip has pretty bad GPS reception and locking on times, but the GPS gets to lock really fast on this phone. I'm sad to say that the camera is the weakest part of this phone. I can snap some pretty nice looking pictures using the camera, but you cannot zoom in too far or you start seeing some pretty grainy quality, even in full sunlight. I also don't know how Cubot did it, but I think the camera isn't very good and there's a ton of noise in it. But Cubot somehow hid all the noise in the picture, so you only see it when you zoom in, and when you don't zoom in, you don't see the noise. So basically, if you don't zoom in, pictures actually look decent on a 20-inch monitor, but once you zoom in, the quality just goes downhill. The video quality is not very good as well, except Cubot couldn't really hide how bad the video quality is as well. The front camera is a little worse quality than other normal front-facing cameras as well. So to sum up the camera, it's definitely not the best part of the phone, but it can probably get you by if you're doing basic things. So at just $130, you get a great looking phone with a very decent performance and very decent battery life. The display's colors pop out at you as well, and the fingerprint sensor is also decent enough for me to use, even for someone like me who doesn't like security on my phone. But let's talk about the not so good stuff as well. Your speakers here are just average, so you don't get great audio quality in general, and the weakest link here is the camera. It takes fine photos as long as you don't zoom in on the pictures at all. It costs about $130, which is an okay price for specs like these, but at this point, phones with specs like these have fallen in price. But then again, Cubot phones have been a little more expensive than the competition, but it's usually well worth it because Cubot actually takes time to optimize everything, so you get a North American-like smartphone experience, and in this case, that a little bit extra does make it completely worth it. So thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Be sure to check out all of my other videos as well.